trust and verify, what I'm really just saying is, hey guys, if you have regularly scheduled meetings with your direct reports and you're reviewing the priority action list that they have committed to, and you notice something is not being done, you actually now get to identify, is that a task that this person is not strong in, does not like doing, is not good at, and that's why it's being put off? Okay, great. Now let's add that to our database. By the way, we're creating one.
Yo, what is up? This is Christian D. Evans, host of Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. And I just want to share with you real quick, thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. It really means a lot to us, but also our community. And, if you like this, please share this with your friend, your family, a colleague, someone that you don't even like. Definitely share that with them. And then also leave a comment and a review for us. We really do appreciate that. And show our guests some love if you find that this episode really resonates with you. Secondly, also want to share with you some really awesome news. I've had the fortunate opportunity to network and have incredible guests, 8 and 9 figure entrepreneurs, CEOs, and founders on our podcast. And what we've done is we've actually been able to open up a Be Uncommon If You Can mastermind, where we're able to open up the door for so many of you, right? Those that are 6-figure, 7-figure entrepreneurs that are scaling, that are struggling, that really want to level up their game, their business, their life, whatever it is. I'm able to open up that door for you with this Be Uncommon If You Can mastermind. Now, we're only taking a select few of individuals. So what you'll need to do is go to christiandeevans.com/mastermind-now. And the link is actually in the description as well. Guys, that is christiandeevans.com/mastermind-now. We're only opening this up for a select few of individuals that really want to level up their game. You have a conversation with me, see if you qualify. And guys, enjoy the episode. And remember, be uncommon if you can. Cheers. Thank you so much for tuning into Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. I'm your host, Christian D. Evans, and this next guest has appeared on ABC TV Shark Tank. He is a develops and executes go-to marketing strategies. He has worked for large and small enterprises, software companies such as IBM, successfully created and ran 4 businesses. These businesses have grown from startup to multi-million-dollar organizations in the health and nutrition sector. Now, he's also an effective communicator and a top priority, and as a business coach and consultant, he works with businesses to ensure that executives are in touch with their customers, business partners, investors, and employees. He's also created, and he's the founder of many companies, and he also created this amazing book that we are going to be talking about today. He's the author, and he's an amazing, amazing book here. But also, I just want to share with you, he has, since 2004, this man, C-Level Roundtable, has worked with over 300 businesses to help them act decisively, go to, or pull back from the market. Key industries he has worked in are technology and business services, finance, healthcare, retail, manufacturing, and he's just publishing this new book, Accountable. My friend, Jeff Cohen. How you doing, my man?
Hey, I'm great, Christian. Thanks very much for having me today.
Well, hey, I'm really excited about it because not only are you an expert in the coaching world, you've worked with a lot of high-level C-suite execs, and then a lot of Fortune 500 companies, but also, developing this incredible book. And we're going to get into the book here shortly. But first of all, I'd like to just kind of jump right into it and ask you, Jeff, what when you're reading and consuming and consulting for these large companies, what do you think majority of them fall in the hurdle? What are the biggest hurdles that they fall into, would you say?
When you're in a big company, the number one thing that exists is politics. Everybody wants to look good, and it's bad to look bad. So people say yes all the time. It's really amazing to me. I was recently talking to an executive at a company who said to me, Jeff, it's way more advantageous for me to say yes and not do something than to say no and not do it. And that is one of the biggest pitfalls companies of any size have. It's either politically motivated or intrinsically motivated by a desire to look good, that people will say yes, when really the best answer is no, so that you can go find the person that says yes and can deliver and stop wasting time.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Do you think that is just because the self-image where they or maybe it's just people pleasing that a lot of them just struggle with that?
I was talking to one of my first mentors in business just the other day. He's retired now. He's got, he was just made such an enormous impact in my life. And I was telling him about some of the things I've done in the last, 30 years since we worked together. And he's like, Jeff, I remember you were such a nice guy back then. I said, you're just a really, really nice guy. I said, yeah, Jack, that's really great. And I learned when I started my own company that being nice didn't serve me. But the journey from being nice to being able to have straight and respectful conversations with people, that really took something. It was a learned trait. People they don't get that overnight. It happens one experience after another, or you could do one thing that I did, which had a huge impact in jump-starting that new me, which is I took a 2-year program called the Team Management Leadership Program. I learned what it was like to actually be accountable and view accountability in a way that was not negative. Like I could own something and be accountable for it and either deliver or not deliver it, but be comfortable to tell people, hey, you know what? I don't think I'm going to deliver that. And, the moment that I saw that I could be empowered to do that without a penalty, it really opened up the world for me. And it got me realizing, wow, people in companies and in families, like, how many times has your spouse said to you, Christian, will you do the dishes? Now, I don't know about you, but it's not my favorite thing. I love to make the mess. Cleaning it up, not so much, but I promise I will do the dishes and I will always say yes. And when the sink is full, I'll finally get to it.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because it's something that kind of caught me off guard because I was not aware of that, and I think that's really interesting. So when you're kind of running into these conversations with individuals, because you're right, like I have individuals on my podcast. We talk politics sometimes, right? Or maybe we may disagree on certain things. And politics, like, and I'm just using this as an example because obviously people have very strong beliefs and so forth. And so in that, sometimes you have to be the person that is mature and, like you said, even like C-suite, you're having tough conversation with someone that you may disagree with, whether it's the board, whether it's another C-suite on CMO or COO, and like, hey, we disagree on that, and obviously there needs to be a separation, but there's a mature way of having that conversation. So kind of walk me through that a little bit, and like how to approach that. Definitely being the CEO, saying, hey, I'm standing my ground, but also there's a mature way of having that conversation.
Well, it's beyond just a mature way of having a conversation, right? Because frankly, we're all adults. We all have maturity. It's not like, there's something missing for us. So I just want to be straight with your audience and with you, Christian. There's nothing wrong. You're going to hear me say that, like whenever I'm working with clients, there's really nothing wrong. Either things work or they don't work. They're effective or they're ineffective. When I started down the path of identifying how do I best help business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives not ever have the experience that I had, which landed with me getting called radioactive on Shark Tank. And we'll talk about that in a minute if you like. But on the way to that, in this 2-year program I told you about, I quickly realized that as I started looking at myself and started doing some work to see like where the gaps were, because just so everyone gets, like up to that point in my life, that was like 2013, I had started, very fast growing businesses. I had a software company. We grew to 50 people in 2 years. I had a granola bar company when the market crashed and my software company went out of business and I declared bankruptcy. It killed me and I pushed everyone in my life away. And we talk about all the business stuff and that's great. And I really want to help people because here's the thing. We often mask what's happening in our life by saying, I'm focusing on my business now. And let me tell you something. My wife and I today are foster to adopt parents. This is my second marriage. But I totally destroyed my first marriage by pushing everyone in my life away when things got tough. And I don't think people really get, like, today mental health is viewed a lot differently than it was back in the early 2000s, but I don't know that people really get the value of ensuring that that connection exists. I mean, I lived and worked in the same house as my two children and my wife at the time, and yet they would never see me. I was never connected. And when I got depressed, I sat in front of Star Trek for 8 hours a day, trying to escape to some planet off world, right? I mean, just out there. So hear me when I tell you, those things absolutely killed me. And the impact they had on my family and a divorce and my kids wasn't good. And I don't want anyone ever to go through that again. So when I started the team management and leadership program, the very first thing that I did was I did a self-assessment. And I realized something very, very important. When I realized this one thing, what happened was it gave me the ability to shift who I was for people, especially those that ran companies and big departments. And what I noticed was I was a really, really shitty boss. I didn't treat people the way I would have wanted to be treated. I took advantage of people. When people came to work for us, they came to work for us because we had tremendous momentum and we were doing great, and I was cocky. And let me just tell you something, that is not where you want to be as a leader. And it's so easy. Like, it's so easy when, when you've worked your ass off to get somewhere and it's happening right now, to forget to be humble. So I went on a journey, and I took 50 CEOs and business owners and entrepreneurs on this journey with me for a year. We started looking at what was not working in our business. And we came to a common point of view. Now, these are like small groups of like 7, 8 people, where we really had meaningful conversations every week for a year. Like, really, got into it. And what I found was everybody has a different definition of effective communication. And so what does that look like? Well, so a lot of people think that it's really effective to communicate when you know someone heard you. So they always wait to hear someone say something after they make a request or answer or say something, right? I'm going to tell you a short story that happened about a month ago. And it's not a business situation, because I want you to know the stuff that you will get out of Count Onable will help you at work with your team. You'll build a great company, I promise. And it will make a bigger difference in your personal life. So here I was, my wife and I went to San Diego for the weekend. We have some friends there. They have a 7-year-old daughter. Our foster to adopt daughter is just turned 1-year-old at that point. And I went out to dinner with my friend and his daughter, and the two women, they went and they had a business function. So, really great. They went and did their thing. My friend has this great wagon. His 7-year-old loves this wagon. So we put the 7-year-old and the 1-year-old in the wagon, and we're off. So we're walking. It's maybe a mile to dinner. We have dinner. It's a great time. The 7-year-old's loving taking care of the 1-year-old in the wagon. The mommy in her is coming out. And we hop back in the wagon to go to frozen yogurt. We're pulling up to frozen yogurt. Now, I'd gotten comfortable. I was standing in the back following them all the way there. And then to frozen yogurt, I was talking to my friend up front. And I turned my head and I see my 1-year-old standing up in the moving wagon with this look of fear in her eyes and a tear running down her cheek. And she doesn't know how to sit safely at that point. She's actually still learning that, how do I sit safely without hurting myself? So she didn't know how to get down. And the 7-year-old is on her device playing a game. And I had my friend stop. I picked my baby up, gave her a hug, calmed her down. I set her back down. And then I went to the 7-year-old and I said, hey, honey, I'm just curious. Did you notice that she was standing up and couldn't sit down? And she said, yeah, I told you. And I thought, wow. Now to her, that was effective. Yeah, I told you. Like, I did my deed. We're good. But for me, it didn't work. I didn't hear her. So I said to her, hey, honey, can I ask you a favor? Would you be kind enough to make sure that I answer you if you tell me something like that again? So she said, famous words, we hear them every day. They become very popular, just 2 words. Got it. And then she went back down to her video game and started playing. And I said to her, hey, honey, I just want to check on something. What'd you get? And she said to me, she said nothing to me for 15 seconds. 15 seconds. That is a long time. And then she picked her head up and she looked at me and she said, you want to make sure that I hear you and that you've answered me. I said, yes, that's exactly what I want. And I would be so grateful if you could do that for me if this happens again. Now, that locked in the communication. And we actually had a chance to go back and visit our friends last weekend, a month later. And I went up to the 7-year-old and I said, hey, listen, you're going to be playing with our baby and your friends. Can you do me a favor? Do you remember that thing I asked you to do last time I saw you? She goes, yeah, where something happens, I should tell you and make sure you heard me. That stuck for a month with a 7-year-old. Imagine what it's like when you're dealing with an adult and they are in a communication with you and they get how important something actually is. And you don't just let it go aside, but you respect them and their stature in the world, and you ensure that you said what you meant and they got what you said and what you meant.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, see, what's so interesting what you're saying, I've never done that. And I think I like that approach because it's like making sure that they hear what you've said, and it really eliminates all that miscommunication aspect. But also, Jeff, I really appreciate you sharing kind of, taking ownership of, hey, I was not the best leader. I was, not the best husband and so forth, but obviously being able to learn from those experiences. And that's what makes us better people. And now being able to take all the knowledge that from years upon years of experience and being able to put it and just give an impact to other people in this book, which is really awesome. I want to dive into this because at the beginning of this book, you talk about your 8-year-old entrepreneurship. And I'd love for you to kind of just tell us a little bit about kind of what you build, what you've been able to do. And I thought that was a really cool story. So if you could share that with our audience.
Absolutely. So just so everybody gets like what Christian's talking about, I gave him an advance copy of the book for this interview because we're coming out next week. And I think this interview will air after we're live. But so, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. And when I was 8 years old, it started. And here's how that happened. I just wanted a few stickers from the sports teams, and I had no idea if any of them would send any to me. So I sat down and I hand wrote a letter. This is before computers. I know I'm dating myself. But I hand wrote a letter to, I think, 26 sports teams. That was a big job. It wasn't photocopied. It wasn't printed on the printer. It was handwritten, right? Then I hand wrote the envelopes and I put a stamp on each envelope myself. And I was really proud of this stack of letters, as was my parents. And then I sent them off. And a couple of weeks later, I started getting some packages back in. Now, when I say packages, I mean packages. I had a stack of stickers, literally could choke a horse. It was enormous. And they were really cool stickers too. I mean, here's my 8-year-old self. Like, I remember the one I loved the most was the New Orleans Saints because it was black and silver and gold and shiny and big. And like everybody wanted that one. So anyway, all these stickers came in and I said to my mom, I said, Mom, that's the wall. I want to put them up on that wall. And she said, no. Like there was no pretense, no anything, just no. So I put them on my notebook and I went to school, and in 4th grade, you know, they were popular. My friends started saying, do you have any more? Can I buy them from you? So I'd sell them for $0.25 or 50 cents, and I got $1 for one of them. And before I knew it, I made $50, and it's a lot of money for an 8-year-old. And my dad says to me, Jeff, you are an entrepreneur. And I said, Dad, that's amazing. What is that? And so he shared it with me. And I've been living that dream ever since. And, you know, the impact that my dad had on my life was enormous. He passed away when he was about 51. And I was just 15 at the time. And it was a huge impact in my life. But those moments, like I carry them with me today, like they were yesterday.
I appreciate you sharing that, because see, you know, some individuals have that just natural feel for salesmanship or just natural feel for entrepreneurship. And, you know, obviously you did, but also, you know, during that period of time, you know, what other skills did you have to really focus on at the beginning of your life or career that you're like, you were not, you know, you're not naturally good at, and you really had to develop over time? Was that just, you know, being able to speak, or was that being able to sell, or what other skills did you have to acquire over the time period of your life? And
You know, I'm a firm believer that you don't naturally have to have a skill. But if you want a skill, you can acquire it. And, you know, with that in mind, there are a lot of ways to acquire skills, right? Public speaking is something I do a lot of. I keynote speeches, working directly in workshops. I have done more sales presentations in Fortune 500, Global 2000 accounts than I can count in my life, right? With anywhere from 20 to 200 people in a room. So there is the need to build skill, right? And how do you do it? Well, you do it by practicing, by repetition, by taking courses and programs and working one-on-one with people that will be straight with you and say, hey, Jeff, that isn't working. Let's try something different, right? And just being open and coachable. You know, the thing is, Christian, and I know you get this because you coach a lot of folks also, is that when someone comes in and they want something, but they're not willing to be coached, like they have to be right, they're not going to get it. I think the number one thing I teach people and get them comfortable with, and it's not always something everybody gets comfortable with right away, is there are two polar extremes in the world. You either have the opportunity to focus on the outcome that you want to have, or you can be right. There's really very little in the middle, right? Because the minute you're a little bit right, you're really all the way right. But here's the thing, and it's in the book, there's a framework I created called the Trust Alignment Framework. And it helps organizations recognize all of the key components that need to be in place in order for the executive team to be aligned with the leader, and the executive team's direct reports to be aligned with the executive team that, oh, by the way, is now aligned with the leader. Crazy, right? Just nuts. Imagine everybody is not in their own sports car going to Seattle and Des Moines and Chicago and San Diego, but they're actually on the bus to San Francisco, and they're all together and they're going at the same speed. Just imagine, crazy, right? So, but the trust alignment framework shows you what all of those key components are. And the thing about outcomes is effective communication, the way I define it in the book, the way I shared with you a few minutes ago with that story, when you have effective communication and everybody knows what it is they're being directed toward and the priorities for what is being directed toward, there's magic that actually happens. It's really, I'm serious. It is freaking magic. Here's what happens. People start getting comfortable when they know the leader has been vulnerable, like I've been with you today. Like I shed a tear already. I don't know if anyone noticed, but I really did. Because it's emotional. You just can't operate from emotion. You got to operate in business from things that work. And you know, we trigger people all the time. So when you're actually able to communicate effectively, have everybody aligned with the vision that you have, and be in a position where all of those things are mapping, people now will start getting they can be countable. What does that mean? Well, what it means is that, Christian, I can tell you, hey man, you can count on me to be on time, to be in communication, and to look for areas I can make the biggest difference in. You can also count on me to tell you what I'm not good at. So let me just tell you right now, don't ask me to do the dishes. I will not do the dishes. Worse yet, don't ask me to do the dishes and tell me it's got to be in a clockwise motion. Like I will totally rebel if you tell me the sponge has to go clockwise. Like, don't tell me how to do the dishes. It's bad enough you're asking me to do the dishes and I'm being a nice guy and saying, well, okay, and then I'll get around to them when the sink is full. Don't do that to people. So it really comes around to one thing. If you want to have a great company, it's the people. And Christian, do you know what you get when you have an employee that's in a job that caters to their strengths, that they're good at, and that they love doing?
Unstoppable team.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And do you know what that employee thinks of their job? Best job ever. This is my dream job. How do I get to, like, I want to do this forever. You know what that does for your company when you do that? A couple things. First off, you get to keep all of that cultural mojo that employee has. Like they help spread your culture, right? Also, you get to keep all of the great nuggets they have trapped away in their head that they've been doing for years in your business. And finally, it's severely, and when I say severely, it severely reduces your cost of replacing employees. Your customers will love you more because they have continuity. They're not always seeing a new face. But the best part about it for your employee is when you become a countable company, you're now looking at your employee differently. You've no longer thrown in that last task when you're about to hire them and they want the job and you know they want the job and you want them, you want to give them the offer. But you've got this one little thing that no one in your department is willing to do. So let's get the new guy to commit to it. And you say, hey, by the way, right before you're about to give him the offer, you say, by the way, can you also wash the dishes for us? Now, what are they going to say? You want them, they know it. They want the job, right? They really, really want the offer. What are they going to say? Of course, I'll do it. No problem. Sure, that's easy. And then they start the job. And what you've done in that moment is you just took the A employee that you hired for the A job, and you gave them a B job for them. And now they're going to begin disappointing you from day one. Can you just imagine for a second setting people up like that? And it happens every day. And then when you have employees and you're not necessarily looking at what it is that's changing in their world, but they are, and what their future ambitions are, but they are, now what? We do such a poor job of career and employee planning for the future. So
well, it's so interesting because you're hitting such a point. I really just kind of want to stop you for a second. It really just emphasizes because, Jeff, you're bringing up some really valid points because as a leader, right, you have, you have all these people that you have to manage, and you have to identify, not focusing on their weaknesses and say, oh, maybe they needed to do a little bit better in this because they're weak at it. And the reality is, hey, I want to put them up in a perfect position that obviously helps them succeed. And the way to do that is to understand their strengths and then really identify, hey, with these other individuals that they can connect with, other team members or other projects or whatever, how can they really excel in that strength? And now the big thing, though, is it really has to know your people. And that's just by building relationships. Now, I do want to stop here for a second because you obviously brought this up, alignment framework as well as the trust framework. And I really got a lot from this, definitely in this book, because you dive really deep into it. You talk about with the alignment framework, effective communication, which is what you mentioned, leader's vision, and then priority actions. And then the trust framework, you explain as well, effective communication, ability of resources, and shared value. And if you would, I'd love for you to kind of tear that apart a little bit and kind of walk us through that a little bit.
Sure. Well, that's the secret sauce, isn't it? The fact of the matter is that when you look at things like the trust alignment framework, it's two frameworks that are coming together. And inside of the two frameworks that are coming together, you bring up, for example, you'll never have trust. I promise. It's always falling out. And people are always looking for reasons that they can't trust you. You could have the strongest trusting relationship with somebody, but they're always looking for, where's that inconsistency? Where is integrity out? And by the way, integrity, it's always falling out. It actually takes something to stay inside of integrity. So if the alignment is out, then it's really easy for trust to fall away. So you mentioned the three components, like in alignment, there's a leader's vision. Well, as the CEO or business owner or department head, you have a vision for what you're doing, right? And then, you've got to have, for things to really come together and work, all three components. But the number one that matters the most is effective communication, because you can have one or two, but without effective communication, you've got nothing. So it's the same thing with the trust framework. You have some shared values. Okay, great. I believe in integrity. That's great. It's a great value. Everyone should have that one, right? But wait, it's falling out all the time. How do I put it back together? And people operate like, once it's out, it's gone. But you can restore the integrity by being straight with people and by being open and honest and vulnerable with people and own what there is to own when things fall out. Again, that's about the effective communication. It's also about putting people in a position where if something's not going the way that you want it to go, you don't penalize them. If you want people to be straight with you and say, look, I'm good at this and this, not good at that. If you want to hear that I'm not good at that, if you want to hear them say, look, you can assign me this task, I'm not really good at it, but you can assign it to me, I will get it done. It'll probably fall to the bottom of their list, and you won't be necessarily managing that until Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock on the holiday weekend, you realize that this employee has had that task for a month and a half. And you want it done. And so you call them up, they're in the middle of something else, right? Their mind is not on, and they say, hey, Jeff, the dishes are still in the sink, aren't they? And I'm telling you, I will become defensive. I will give you reasons why. I'll waste 20 or 30 minutes of your time. Oh, by the way, regardless of the customer that I was helping when you called unexpectedly, right? Regardless of the other important task that you really want me to do, now you're focused on the dishes, right? But we do that all the time to our people. It makes them defensive. It costs trust in a relationship. Guess what? It has them leave you. You do that enough, they will not stick around. They will go find another job someplace else where they don't have that. And by the way, as a manager or a leader, you have 5 or 6 employees that you do that to, you just wasted 2 to 3 hours a week. And that doesn't count the time that that employee spends mulling in their head over that conversation that impacts their productivity for the next week. Because they're trying to figure out, oh my God, I pissed off my boss. Now what's going to happen? Right? Do I need to find another job? Just, you put them in the penalty box. And Christian, this is not hockey. There is no benefit to putting your own people in the penalty box if you want them working.
Such powerful insight. And because what I find very interesting, because I want to dive into this, because at the end of the book, you kind of talk a little bit about partnership and trust, and we've kind of hit, the emphasis of like trust and integrity and so forth. And you have some really cool quotes in that. But I wanted to ask a question in regards to like that, because see, when you're developing partnership, right? When you talk about like shared, values and, leader vision and priority and so forth, you're also partnering with your employees, you're partnering with your C-suite, it depends upon how big your organization is, you're partnering with other companies to really, achieve X result, whatever that may be, right? And my question is let's say, for example, Jeff, you start realizing that, okay, at the front end, because everybody on the front end, they can put up a nice, maybe you may know him for 2-3 months. It's like, oh, wow, he's integrous. He's ambitious, he or she, right? Okay, this could be an awesome partner. At what point do you say, okay, now I'm starting to see some red flags occur, and I didn't see that before. Maybe I see he's cutting the edge a little bit in compensation or the way he treats his employees and stuff like that. And so, I'm just curious, how do you have that conversation, that tough conversation, and then as well as, do you give him some grace, he or she give him some grace, and then as well as, at what point do you say, you know what, there's a zero tolerance policy and I'm going to cut this relationship? What does that look like, Jeff?
Yeah, so first off, you just described what normally goes on in the world, right? It really just, like, that's the way of the world. Like, I'm patenting this process today because I found a way to shift the entire conversation and create an environment that works, right? Where people don't get that tough conversation. You don't need a tough conversation. What you need is a straight conversation that's respectful. That is what you want, because in the beginning, what happens is, and again, I learned this, I was too nice. And then I got really frustrated. And then I did things like I demoted my business partner I started my big company with, right? From chief technology officer to just a delivery consultant. I didn't do it well. Why did I do it? Well, he made some promises. I didn't really manage the promises. I was managing him. So here's the first thing. We often try to manage people. Stop that. You can't manage people. People hate being managed. Do you like being managed? I hate it. To me, that's like micromanagement 101. I don't want to hear someone tell me how to do my job. Tell me, Jeff, wash the dishes. Don't tell me in a clockwise manner. Like, that will just drive me nuts, right? So I actually created a meeting schedule. Do you remember, you might be a little young for this. Again, I know I'm dating myself. Ronald Reagan, when he was president, signed the SALT agreement with Gorbachev to reduce nuclear arms. And at the time, he got up on the podium, Gorbachev was on his side, and he said, Mikhail, we are going to trust that you are going to remove those nuclear weapons. Thank you. Oh, by the way, then we're going to send in teams of people to verify you did that. And trust and verify, actually a Russian term, but trust and verify is all I'm suggesting that we do with our people. Because like HubSpot has like a 120-page slide deck on the web I found that talks about how they trust their people. Like take whatever vacation you want, you know, all of that, right? Without a single page in there about how they verify it's done. So what I realized over 300 companies and working with them on this process was that you actually need a solid meeting schedule that does a few things, right? It tells you who you meet with and how often, right? It tells you what you want to track, and it tells you what to say. So it's actually in the book. It's step by step. Step one is this, step two is that, then say this. It's really not rocket science. It's so super simple. It's actually intuitive. It's just most people are so wrapped up in their stuff of what they're doing, they don't like jump in and do that. So when you look at trust and verify, what I'm really just saying is, hey guys, if you have regularly scheduled meetings with your direct reports and you're reviewing the priority action list that they have committed to, and you notice something is not being done, you actually now get to identify, is that a task that this person is not strong in, does not like doing, is not good at, and that's why it's being put off? Okay, great. Now let's add that to our database. By the way, we're creating one, so that when we have that task again, we know, oh, Jeff is not the guy we want washing the dishes. Right? Let's go find someone that loves doing that, or let's string together all of the things people hate doing, create a job description. This is my best. I got it from Mike Michalowicz in Fix This Next. Amazing book. And let's create a job description and hire someone for that job. Oh my God, what a revelation. Now you have the job everybody hates doing wrapped into someone that loves doing it. Is there a better win than that?
I love it. I love it. And it's so funny because it's like sometimes, definitely business owners and even C-suite, right? We overcomplicate something that's really not that complicated. And like you just said, you laid it out just so simply. Oh, wow, this guy doesn't like it. Create another. I just love it. I love it. Now, I do want to share, and I love that approach with like trust but verify, right? Because it's the concept I'm going to trust you on the front end, because I really wanted I was going to, bring this up a little bit in our conversation. But, one of the things I'm noticing is that there is a lot of mistrust in today's society. And like, to the government, to institutions, and there was a lot of trust during many years ago, but like now we're seeing like a lot of people can't trust the FBI and the CIA and the government, and now there's just this constant like skepticism. It's like, okay, I don't you're really guilty until proven innocent, vice versa, then hey, you're innocent until proven guilty. And one of the things that I like your approach is that whole concept of, hey, you know what, you're innocent until there are certain things that I've discovered that prove you, hey, red flags, and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to verify. Oh, let's take a look at this, right? And so
Christian, I just want to say back to you, because I didn't answer your red flag question, so I want to just be straight about that with everybody. So if you're having a weekly meeting with your people and something is not getting done, yes, that's a red flag. But what is it a red flag of? Is it a red flag of the person and their character? Or is it a red flag of a task or a role? Really invite you to look at that before you just start hanging people out to dry, because you may have an A player that's now in a B job because something has changed over time. And so now they're disappointing you because they're a B player for them in a B job, but it's an A job to you and you need an A player in that. So big alignment question right there.
That's huge. I appreciate that. Now, I do want to get your quote on this before we let you go here, Jeff. And again, just immense value. I really just appreciate diving into it and just explaining the frameworks and stuff. But I wanted to get to this quote. I thought it was really awesome. It really resonated with me. Building leaders in leadership doesn't occur when you force your people to do things. It happens when they are empowered to take them on. Love to get your response on that.
Yeah, that is a quote from the book that really identifies back to outcomes and being right. So keep in mind that whenever you're right, you're likely going to be perceived as forcing people to do things, right? Managing people. Like if you think about the word accountability, it's got a really bad rap, right? You open the dictionary up and the definition is holding someone responsible. By the way, we saw that last night on the 6 o'clock news because someone was going to jail, or there was a politician that, we said did something underhanded and needed to be held accountable. Man, people don't want to be held accountable. They will resist it at all costs. People love taking pride in what they are accountable for. And the shift from a company or an organization or a life where you use accountability as a weapon and not a tool, to a life where you empower people to say, hey, look, I'm really good at this. I'm really bad at that. You can count on me over here. You can't count on me over there. That will provide an ownership mindset in your company. And as an owner, if you ever want to sell your business, or better yet, today, you want to take a vacation with your family and not work 2 to 4 hours a day, you need a business that'll grow with and without you. You need to be the least important person in your business. So when you sell, there's no 5-year earnout, which you'll probably never get anyway, right? I mean, the reality is that when you sell your business, you want to walk away, but you can't unless other people can run it without you. If you can take a month off of your business and it's still working, you can sell it and a buyer will believe it doesn't need you.
That's huge. That's huge. I love it. I love it. Jeff, again, just the immense value. I thought that was just really incredible, just talking about the book and really explaining deep down. And guys, I would highly recommend reaching out. But Jeff, where can our audience reach out to you and be part of you, what you got going on, and as well as just kind of get access to this book?
So I own the website, counthonorable.com. I was shocked. I was able to buy that website. Like that URL was amazing. So www.countonable.com. The book goes live on Amazon on June 16th. We're going to do some pre-events. Those will be recorded and loaded up on social media so you guys can watch them. I've got a lineup of really great people. We're going to talk about what the difference between accountability and being countable is. And also, by the way, you can implement this process yourself. It's really simple. And if you want, people to talk to about it, like reach out to me or my team on the website. Download all of the assets, like every single chart and graph and tool that we use in the program. It's all on the website and free to download. And I invite you to do that. If you need any help, reach out to us directly or one of our communities. And you can download the very first chapter of the book, which is called Grand Theft Auto. And I'm just going to give you this one thing. It's about a time I stole a car and came up with the very first trigger in my life that I've carried with me my entire life. Remember that thing I told you I'll waste a half hour of your time with? That's the one. Mm-hmm. So download it. It's available on the website if you want a little taste of the book, or you can go to Amazon and get the Kindle version or the paperback, and reach out. Like, we want to help you be successful. No business stands alone. It's a way of life, not just a motto.
That's awesome, guys. And those links will be in the description below. So make sure you just click on that, literally stop where you're at and just click on it and just, the biggest thing in life is to take action, right? And actually implement these things, right? And the thing is you do not want to be sitting there and all of a sudden you lose your business and you lose a lot of your employees because you lack this foresight. And, Jeff has spent many, many years coaching hundreds upon hundreds of businesses and being able to put this all in this incredible book. And so I would highly recommend just stopping what you're doing and just consume it and just be part of his community, what he's got going on. And Jeff, again, just appreciate the immense value that you brought in. I really enjoyed personally reading the book. I was taking tons of notes, and I just personally, selfishly, I just love the conversation we had today. But Jeff, I love to always ask, what's the last words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience before we let you go?
Hey, thanks very much, Christian. I'm going to keep that really simple. So I want everyone to listen very carefully because this is probably the most important thing you can take from this conversation. Stop just being accountable. Be countable.
Awesome, guys. And that, my friends, is Jeff Cohen. Guys, thank you so much. That is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. Until next time, remember, be uncommon if you can. Yo, this is Christian D. Evans, Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. We thank you so much for listening to this amazing episode. If you feel and you know that this was valuable to you, please show some love to our amazing guest by liking this, by commenting on this, by making sure that you do a nice 5-star review and just show some love to our guest. That'd be really awesome. Also, make sure you share this with a friend, a family, a colleague, someone that you believe would bring value to their life right now. And guys, we just want to say thank you again for just being part of our community. If you want to have more resources, don't be afraid. Go to christiandevans.com. You can actually schedule a phone call with me, or you can send me an email at christian.evans@beUncommonIfYouCan.com. That's christian.evans@beUncommonIfYouCan.com. Always love to hear some feedback and let me know what is the number 1 or 2 things that you are struggling in your business and your life, and we'll make sure we have those conversations. Guys, that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast, and until next time, remember, be uncommon if you can. Cheers.